Oh, right. Today's fourth review is going to be of Supergirl. So I gave this movie a 7 out of 10 just because I thought there was some things they could have done a little bit better with more the secondary character Lobo than anything else, because I feel like they very much nerfed him in this story, and I just felt like he had a lot more to offer. Now, we're probably going to get a solo Lobo movie, which I'm looking forward to because the actor Jason Momoa is just fit for that part. Like, he just fits that part so well. There was a couple other things that I will touch on, obviously, as I go, but yeah. Um, so, we'll go over the cast list as we always do. Millie Alcock, who played Supergirl, David Corenswet, who played Superman, and it was nice to see him in this movie, even if it was just like a few short cameos, just because that brings me hope that we're going to get a movie with the two of them in it, like eventually down the road. Probably after it is a Man of Tomorrow, I do believe. Probably after that, which I believe comes out, is it later this year or early next year? I can't remember, but it's one of those two. Eve Ridley, who played Ruthie. Matthias Schoenarts, who played Krem. Again, hope I'm pronouncing that name right. David Krumholtz, who played Zor-El, so that would have been Kara's father. Jason Momoa, who played Lobo. Emily Beachman, who played Alara Zor-El, so that would have been Kara's mother. Duramaid Murtaugh, who played Drom Braxton, who was basically Lobo's number one, like, I guess, enemy from the brigands that he was after. Ferdinand Kinsley, who played Elias Knoll, so this would have been part of Ruthie's family. Emily Pigford, who played Delilah Knoll. Bruce Lennox, who played Edmund Knoll. Talisa Texera, who played Merrick Vran. Kadif Kerwin, who played Bomar Vran, and then Asha Sotin, who played Sarna Vran. So they were characters that were introduced on one of the planets that Supergirl travels to, where their daughter had been captured, and they tried to basically screw over Supergirl in order to trade Ruthie and her for their own daughter back from Krem. So, Evely is the home planet of Ruthie. Now, I had to go back and record this again because, yeah, unfortunately I just messed up the first time, and yeah, there was just some stuff that I missed that I should have wrote down, but I didn't. So anyway, so Evely was the first planet I guess we ever see in the movie, right? Where Krem shows up on his ship, and he shows up, and he's after these weapons that her father has made. So her father, I guess, is a blacksmith. Must have been a pretty high up blacksmith across the galaxy if Krem and the Brigands are coming to him for weaponry, right? Of course, he just hands off whatever he wants, like the keys for Krem, and then Krem decides that he's going to take Ruthie's mom to show him exactly where all the weapons are. Now, I'm not sure whether they were going to take her as a bride, but they end up killing the entire family, of course. And then, of course, Krem's ship is blown up in the process, so I'm not exactly sure how he ended up getting off planet, but he must have found another way. Now, Ruthie is left as the only one alive in her family, and I'm not entirely sure why they did that either, but maybe Krem also saw her as a viable wife to carry on his bloodline, because we find out a little bit later on in the film that the Brigands basically are a all-male race, so they just go from planet to planet, basically kidnapping who they find suitable as a wife to carry on their all-male race, which is just seems like such a foreign concept to us, doesn't it? Because, yeah, no women on a planet would just seem weird, I think. I guess it's because you never know. Obviously, we're not the only people or whatever you want to call us out there. Like, there's got to be more. The galaxy is just so big, right, that we can't be the only ones. So I think these movies are just such a cool concept to kind of be like, are there people potentially out there with these kinds of powers? But yeah, it is weird to think about that. An all-male Earth or an all-male planet. So Holzer is the first planet that Supergirl travels to with a red sun, or at least that's what we see. So I'm assuming she was staying on Holzer for quite some time because in the very opening scene of the movie, we can kind of see her, in a basically she said that she's celebrating like her birthday for the birthday week kind of thing, right? And Superman's trying to get a hold of her, but she just kind of keeps ignoring him, and he just wants her to come home, like come home to Earth, because that's what he considers his home. But she obviously has like a very deep internal struggle, and I feel like we see that right throughout the movie. Obviously, like she had a very different upbringing than what Superman had, because obviously he was um, just transported right to a different planet from basically a baby, like almost birth, essentially. And she wasn't born for another 10 years. And then she grew up on this Argo City. And when she tells about that, it makes you feel for the character, for sure. Um, so, yeah, she talks about her time on Argo City, and then eventually all the people, uh, I believe, like slowly dying due to, was it whatever kind of poison they were inhaling on Argo City. Now, eventually, her father gives her a pod too in order to escape from Argo City, right? Now, she doesn't speak any English, basically, at this point. It's all Kryptonian. So when she lands and finds Superman for the first time, he's trying to talk to her, right? And he can't. Like, she's only speaking Kryptonian, and he's speaking English because that's the language he was raised on, right? Like he doesn't know any other language. He doesn't know how to speak Kryptonian, which is unfortunate for him because then he would have been able to communicate with her a little bit better, obviously, when she first landed. But um, he does get to meet her in Crypto, I guess, and he does say to her, like, your powers are about to kick in like 3, 2, 1, because you're on a yellow sun planet and your powers here are the highest they're ever going to be, right? So yeah, it was kind of interesting to see. Now, obviously, she kind of disassociates from being on Earth and doesn't really think that that's her home. So she's going from planet to planet to try to find a home. Now, she is trying to escape, obviously, her past because I think she kind of feels like she's a little bit alone, right? And never really, never really found a home. But I think after this, like after this movie and what she has to go through in this, she does say that she's going to stay on Earth with Superman for quite some time. Like she doesn't want to leave again because trying to fight that kind of a battle all by yourself could obviously be a bit demoralizing, right? Now, I will say, in this movie, they did a very good job of showing her weaknesses, like they did in the Supergirl show, where she wasn't like completely so powerful that she couldn't be defeated. And in the Supergirl show, I loved that about it because, it kind of shows that you have to be able to bounce back as such a powerful character that you are able to be defeated and you have to kind of overcome adversity. And she was already trying to overcome so much, like from her life as it was, that she, um, was obviously having like the hard time with the battles throughout this movie, right? Like even Krem for her was a pretty formidable opponent. Now I will admit she was poisoned during that scene, so it might have been a little bit harder for her to fight back until she was able to get the poison out of her. But it was the same poison, I guess, that Crypto was shot with when Krem stole her ship. So I guess from what I'm gathering, if I'm remembering correctly, Ruthie obviously got off of her home planet and somehow made it to Holzer in order to try to find somebody who would be willing to take out Krem. Now, obviously, nobody there wanted to, and they just wanted her father's sword. They were like, how did you get that sword? So on and so forth. And then somebody ends up just taking it from her, and Supergirl has to fight that guy. Now, keep in mind, on a Red Sun planet, Supergirl is still strong, but does not have all of her abilities. So she is able to bleed, but she still is able to defeat the guy and give Ruthie back her sword. And from then on, the two are kind of like connected, intertwined. And I think Ruthie was also like a very mainstay character in this film, but the two stories just like kind of combined so well because they were kind of coming from the same path. Now, I wouldn't say it was necessarily quite the same. Like, obviously, Ruthie watched her parents die, like her family die, and I think um, so. Supergirl was disconnected from her family, obviously, and never got to see them again. So she believes that her parents are dead, but maybe they're still out there in Argo City, and they were able to figure the problem out. She doesn't know for sure, but it's kind of a similar path, I guess, because you're still losing the ones you love. It's just in a very different way, right? Um, and obviously, Supergirl seems to have a lot of like hate in her heart, and she kind of considers herself like a solo act, I guess. Like, doesn't really want anybody around her because she knows that she could potentially cause them a lot of um, hardships and turmoil too, I suppose. But I think Ruthie kind of grounds her a little bit, and of course she does. She does even talk Ruthie down from killing Krem, because that seems to be Ruthie's only goal in this movie, is to find Krem and kill him. And of course, obviously, now that Crypto has been poisoned, uh, Supergirl is going to go after Krem as well to get the antidote, because they carry the antidote with them on hand for this poison. I'm assuming for them themselves that they get poisoned, right? So they have to go to Bilquist, which is controlled by space pirates, and that is where they meet Lobo, and that is also where they meet these other two characters, Merrick and Bomar Vran, who are trying to get their daughter back. Now, I think they tried to like tell them that this friend was showing up that could help them get to Krem, right? Turns out they were just leading Krem right to them in order to trade for their own daughter, right? Now, obviously, that plan didn't go too well because Krem knew he was being double-crossed, I guess, after he found out that Supergirl was there and got into a huge fight with them. And then, of course, all of the brides escape, that they were basically that they had captured. Oh my God, can I talk today? That they had captured. So Krem just kills all three of them, including the daughter. And of course, I believe Supergirl does stop Ruthie from doing any damage to Krem in that scene again, because she doesn't want to see Ruthie kind of go down the same like path as her, because she knows it's not going to do any healing for Ruthie to kill Krem. Like, her parents are going to be brought back by murdering somebody else, right? But also, at the same time, I get why Ruthie would want to do that. Like, it's your family, right? That's basically who you've been around your entire life, and then they're just taken from you at a moment's notice, and there's nothing you can do about it, and now you just want revenge on the people that took your family's lives. I understand that. So, yeah, I think we all do as humans. We understand that kind of mentality, right? To having a family member taken away from us in that kind. If it was taken away from us in that kind of manner, the revenge would be kind of the path most of us would probably take in any sort of capacity, right? So yeah, I understand that storyline, and it was a very powerful one, because as much as Supergirl was struggling with her own kind of ups and downs, she was also trying to keep Ruthie in check at the same time. So yeah, it's hard. And Supergirl definitely showed her darkness in this movie, like when they were attacked by when they were boarded by these other space pirates that were just trying to steal. Now, they might have been part of the brigands too. I'm not entirely sure, but she was able to defeat them and then get close to the Yellow Sun and show like her true powers to them by just ripping their ship apart and leaving them completely stranded, right? So there was some like comedic moments in this film, even including that, right? Like when they were on the ship together, and she didn't, like, Ruthie obviously didn't want to give up the sword, and then Supergirl came up with this wild plan. And I will say the action sequences in this movie were great. Like, even the slow-mo one at the end where Supergirl's just like flying around Ruthie and taking out all of the brigands at the end of the film, and Lobo was kind of just sitting there watching, because after the whole brigand ship thing, like the big battle scene on their ship, he kind of just sits back afterwards and just watches. Now, he is definitely the antagonizer of the film, because he even almost like hands Krem up to Ruthie on like a silver platter during that whole ship battle scene. And even in the even in the scene on Bilquist where they're just fighting, he's just absolutely causing chaos in the background. But that is where I found that they nerfed him a little bit, because I remember him being able to kind of like jump and teleport, and he didn't do a lot of that in this film, if I'm thinking correctly, right? Like uh, he can sort of like, he has a lot more abilities than what they were showing in this film. But I feel like maybe that's because we're going to get a solo Lobo film again. But yeah, so Krem is of the Yellow Hills, and he was the main villain of the film. I guess I should probably tell you where he's from, right? And I'm not exactly sure where the Yellow Hills are, but Baraton was the last planet that Krem decides to land on. And of course, he lands there because he knows it's going to weaken Supergirl, so when she comes along, it's going to be pretty easy for him to fight her, right? Now, it orbits a green sun, so I believe the green sun would have been all kryptonite, right? Which is obviously Superman and Supergirl's weakness. So she's basically dying on the planet until the yellow sun shows up, and then she has a very limited amount of, like a very limited window, obviously, in which she can fight, right? Because I'm not exactly sure, they don't tell you how long each sun stays up for, but I would imagine it's probably a day's time, just based on how long everything took place until Supergirl was able to get back up. Now, Ruthie does bring her suit, and that was one of the things I noticed throughout the movie, was that Supergirl didn't wear her suit, and I think she kind of wanted to be, obviously, a little bit incognito and not really let a lot of people know who she was, obviously, because then, you know, they would just associate, they would just be driven to her, right, and try to take her out. So yeah, to be inconspicuous was kind of her thing, right, because she just wanted to live a normal life, but you could tell she was just trying to escape from who she was. So it's kind of sad to watch, actually, like just her basically feeling defeated about who she was and just kind of have to fight her way through it, right? Now, I will say she wasn't necessarily like the greatest fighter of all time, but I think she used her powers, obviously, to her advantage to make it a much easier for her when she could, right? Like she would take the easy route out in a lot of fights, as opposed to, you know, just like hand to hand combat. But a lot of it was close quarters combat with her in this movie, because I almost feel like she knew she had the powers. Oh my god, sorry. So she could easily just fall back on that when and if she needed to, right? So Krem's able to get away from Bilquist and then go to Baraton, and then yeah, we see Lobo's been captured as well by the brigands, and then Ruthie's able to get out of her cell and bring Lobo with her, and then the whole big battle scene on the ship at the very end. Now, Krem was one of the smartest villains I think I've ever seen in this movie. He seemed to always be like a step ahead. Even when he shot Crypto and was able to take the dog out, right, and then just take Supergirl's ship away. And when they got onto the brigand ship and were trying to fight them, he had like this wrist gauntlet thing filled with kryptonite arrows, basically. And yeah, I guess he had been preparing very thoroughly for Supergirl, right? Like he obviously like knew all of her weaknesses and strengths almost off the hop. It was kind of crazy to watch, because clearly he wasn't just a villain. Like he did his due diligence and research on everybody who was coming after him. And I guess when you're trying to keep your bloodline going, that would make sense, right? You'd want to make sure you knew exactly who your enemies were, and you know all of their strengths and weaknesses. That makes sense, right? So yeah, clearly he knew what planet he was going to go to, what he could do to weaken Supergirl. Unfortunately, it didn't work, because she obviously had Lobo on her side at this point. Even though he wasn't necessarily, say, fighting with her, I would say he was fighting, like he wasn't fighting for her, but he was fighting the same kind of battle. So that's eventually why they just connected. and he watches the final battle between all of them, right? Where Supergirl's just like flying around Ruthie in the slow mo and taking out all the brigands, and then she stops Ruthie one more time from killing Krem, but she does kill Krem herself. So that's where the darkness kind of showed a little bit in her character. Um, I find, and even the scene where she takes out the one set of space pirates that came on to like the oh, what do you call it? What do you call it? A transport ship from like planet to planet. Like she showed how like dark she can even be there by just dismantling their ship and leaving them stranded, sort of thing, right? Um, so yeah, there was a lot of stuff that kind of showed that she could potentially kind of lose it in her power, and I feel like maybe that was another thing she was escaping from potentially. I'm not entirely sure, but I feel like that was kind of part of the story. And her and Ruthie just connected so well. Just their chemistry on screen was great. And I am looking forward to the next Superman movie. A lot of people say, now I will say this movie wasn't as good as the Superman movie. Believe I gave the Superman movie a 9 out of 10, and I gave this one a 7 out of 10 if I didn't already say that. But yeah, there was just some more that they could have maybe done with the story. It was a unique and different telling, because I believe from most of it, usually we see like Superman gets shot off of Krypton, and then very soon after, it's Kara who's being shot after him, right? And then they find each other much later on, right? I do believe that's usually how the story goes. But yeah, it's almost like she lived out a whole lifetime before she even meets Clark or Superman in this movie. So yeah, that was kind of a cool, different telling of the story that I don't personally remember ever seeing before, but maybe we have. Yeah. Or they just never really touched on it, the Argo City part, quite as much as they did in this movie. So I feel like they were really trying to give Supergirl her own very unique origin story in this movie. And yeah, I mean, I still liked this movie. It just, yeah, there was some stuff with obviously Lobo and maybe the enemies that they could have done a little bit more with. But yeah, I mean, I'm not really as familiar with Supergirl's enemies. Like, she doesn't have like one mainstay enemy like Superman does, right? Like, Superman and Lex Luthor are always constantly kind of going back and forth because Superman stays in one place. But with Supergirl, she's all over the place, right? So it's kind of hard for her to have just one pure enemy that she's constantly fighting all the time, because she's always on the move, right? So she's obviously going to make friends along the way, but she's also going to make enemies along the way too. Oh my god, I just choked there. Almost just choked there. Um, so yeah, I think that's pretty much all I can say about the movie. Now, the visual effects in these movies have been phenomenal. I will say that. Like, these guys know what they're doing when it comes to their visual effects. And if they're using like practical and CGI, you can hardly tell. Like, I know obviously Crypto, yeah, like Crypto isn't real, but yeah, even his CGI for this movie is pretty darn good. Like, like it's very like obviously he's animated in a little bit, but yeah, you could like he does look real in a lot of the scenes. So they did a very good job of that again, just like in the Superman movie. And I am looking forward to them doing more, obviously. Now, it's saying that this is doing bad at the box office, but I mean, again, this is one of those things where I feel like if you're a DC fan, you're going to go see this, regardless of what is being said about the movie. Um, I, yeah, like I hate that everything is just so hated on from the get-go without actually going to do any like research into it or go watch it for yourself, sort of thing. Like, so many people are just right off the hop, they're like, oh well, this movie's saying it's bad, so I'm just not going to go watch it. Now, again, I don't get to go see every single movie that I want to in theaters. It happens. Sometimes we just miss them, but it is what it is with that, right? But yeah, for the bigger ones like this one, I'm going to go see it, right? Because I want to know for myself, is it worth the big screen adventure? And yes, I probably will watch this again at home to maybe do more like a little bit more of an in-depth review where I can write down some more stuff as the movie's going along. But that'll be much later on down the road if I do decide to do that. Anyhow, I think that's pretty much it for this review. I think I've covered everything I can, at least as much as I can from memory. So yeah, I guess I will see you guys in the next review. Bye bye for now.